Hi, everyone. It's Tracy, content producer for the podcast, and I can't wait for you to listen to this inspiring episode. It's all about something every trademark professional thinks about, but doesn't always get the chance to experience in a truly intentional way: career growth and professional development. What makes this conversation really special is that it's not just about theory, it's about what happens when an organization actively builds a culture where growth isn't left to chance. We're joined by Robert Daniel and Ioná Loureiro from Daniel IP, and their perspectives bring this to life in a really powerful way. You'll hear stories about careers that didn't follow a straight path, including a journey from trademark paralegal to partner, and how growth can happen at any stage of your career. We also get into what leadership actually looks like in practice. And spoiler, it's less about being the loudest voice in the room and more about listening, creating opportunities, and helping people take ownership of their own development. And maybe most importantly, this episode shows how small ideas like raising your hand, asking a question, or pitching something new can turn into real opportunities that shape careers, teams, and even entire organizations. So, whether you're early in your career or thinking about what's next, there's something in this episode for you. So, let's dive in.
Welcome to the TMA Talk Show. The TMA Talk Show will take you into the heart of the TMA community, highlighting the trademark administrators as a force to be reckoned with within the intellectual property landscape. Hosted by yours truly, Emily Quackenbush, along with several surprise guest hosts, the TMA Talk Show will focus on the IP community, collaboration, and the unique contributions of each episode's special guests. This is the TMA Talk Show. Because while the rest of the world is busy building, marketing, and launching, the trademark administrator is quietly, or not so quietly, making sure you still own the name you're so proud of. Oh, and hey, of course, this goes without saying, but All Legal is a legal tech company and not a law firm. Nothing here in this episode should be considered legal advice, and this presentation expressed the views of our speakers and not necessarily those of Alt Legal, the TMAE, or the views of the hosts. Welcome back to the TMA Talk Show, where we spotlight the voices shaping the TMA community. Today, we're talking about something that many trademark professionals want and think about, but very few organizations approach in such a deliberate way: professional development. Most trademark administrator careers don't follow a straight path. We learn through experience, by taking on new challenges from amazing colleagues who are willing to share what they've learned, and sometimes by even given opportunities we didn't know existed. But what happens when an organization decides not to leave that growth to chance? Today, we're joined by Robert Daniel and Ioná Loureiro of Daniel IP, and we're going to chat with them about their firm's philosophy and long-term investment in people development. Over the past 2 decades, Daniel has undergone a significant organizational transformation focused on professionalizing management practices, strengthening its people and culture function, and creating a structured environment for continuous development across all teams. The transformation was driven by a vision of building a modern professional services organization where growth opportunities are not determined primarily by titles or traditional firm hierarchies, but by performance, behaviors, potential, and willingness to take on new challenges. Welcome to today's episode. Robert is a partner at Daniel IP, one of Latin America's leading intellectual property and technology law firms. His practice focuses on trademark, brand protection, litigation, and portfolio management for global brands across Brazil and the region. In addition to his legal practice, Robert plays an active leadership role within the firm and is a strong advocate for the professional development of trademark administrators and other trademark professionals, including specialists and legal operations professionals. He believes that successful trademark practices are built through collaboration, continuous learning, and creating opportunities for talented professionals to grow beyond traditional role expectations. Robert has been actively involved in the International Trademark Association for more than a decade. In 2020, he joined the Trademark Administrators Committee, an experience that deepened his understanding of the challenges, opportunities, and contributions of the TMAs within the trademark profession. The experience reinforced values that had long been part of Daniel's culture, where professional development is driven by talent, leadership, and potential rather than by rigid professional labels. Robert holds an LLM in Law and Technology from the University of California, Berkeley School of Law, and frequently speaks and writes on intellectual property, innovation, and the future of legal services. In 2025, he was recognized as Brazil's Practitioner of the Year by Managing IP. Ioná is a partner at Daniel IP and an intellectual property professional with more than 30 years of experience in trademark practice, strategic portfolio management, and brand protection. Her professional journey reflects the evolving role of trademark professions within the IP industry. Ioná began her career as a trademark paralegal, developing extensive hand-on experience in trademark operations and portfolio administration before later becoming an attorney. After joining Daniel, she further expanded her role into strategic client advisory, team leadership, and management responsibilities, ultimately becoming a partner at the firm. Today, she advises national and international clients on trademark prosecution, portfolio management, and brand protection strategies, and Madrid Protocol matters, combining deep operational knowledge with a highly practical and business-oriented perspective on intellectual property management. Ioná is actively involved in mentoring, training, and professional development initiatives within the trademark community, with a particular interest in continued evolution and recognition of trademark administrators and IP professionals. Her experience across different stages of the profession allows her to continue a unique perspective on career development, team building, and the increasing strategic role of trademark professionals with both law firms and corporate environments. In addition to her professional practice, she is engaged in pro bono legal work and social impact initiatives, applying her expertise in intellectual property to support social causes and intellectual projects. She believes the legal profession can also serve as a tool for inclusion, education, and positive transformation. Her multidisciplinary academic background includes degrees in law, marketing, and languages, such as Portuguese and English, as well as postgraduate studies in business law, intellectual property law, human behavior and neuroscience, communication, and human development. She is a member of the Brazilian Bar Association as well. Robert and Ioná, it is such an honor to have you with us today. Thank you for joining us. So we're going to start with a couple of quick stories to give our listeners a little glimpse into your journey. Robert, let's start with you. Can you tell us a belief you held about your career growth, leadership, or professional success that you have since changed your mind about? What happened and what do you believe now?
Sure. Well, first, hello, good morning, good afternoon, or good night and evening, whoever's listening. Very happy to be here at the TMA Talk Show to talk about such an important and interesting topic so close to our hearts and to home. I so thought about a little bit what I could say here because at first it's difficult to imagine what can come up, and then some things started naturally to come. And I think one thing about leadership that I've always thought about was the need that great leaders would have to be naturally extroverts, so a natural charisma to them. So either you have it or you don't. And over time, I learned that's far from the truth. Even thinking of my own experience as a person who is a leader within the firm as well. And I'm definitely not a natural extrovert. I've always been a very shy person, and even friends that know me from childhood, there was always a joke that people didn't know what my voice sounded like, but because I would not say anything at all. So obviously there are people that are extroverts and they are very great leaders as well. But I think leadership is much more about different things, and one of them is, at least how I think of things, is empathy. So listening to the others and learning what they can sort of contribute, what they want to do, how best they will perform based on something that is also close to their hearts or that makes them feel comfortable. So this is definitely something that I realized, and we end up applying within the firm as well, that we have different styles of leaderships, and we want everyone to be able to grow and do their best within those roles. So that's a little bit of my takeaway. So a shout out to the other introverts out there.
Yeah. Believe it or not, some of those introverts are one of the best leaders in groups and in large capacities where they may be quiet, but they're some of the strongest leaders in groups.
Thank you, Emily. It's a pleasure to be here. Early in my career, I thought that the biggest opportunities happened at the beginning of our professional lives. For example, I joined the IP profession when I was 18 years old, and now I'm 55. And I realized that professional life is like a journey. We must have patience, humility, and perseverance to rate our time, to rate the opportunities. And I was fortunate to find many opportunities for growth at Daniel, because here I started as a trademark paralegal, and this year I became a partner. That experience taught me that growth is not defined by age or job titles. It comes from continuous learning, hard working, and being able to new challenges. From me, lesson the lesson is simple. Growth has no expiration date.
And I'm just going to say congratulations to you. That's quite an accomplishment. You should be very proud. Okay, can you share a brief story about a detour, pivot, or surprise that ended up shaping your personal growth?
Yeah, I think one thing that's interesting, and it's sort of recent, was it involves moving cities. So I've moved a couple of times in my life. I've moved 8 years ago from Rio to São Paulo, and then last year I moved back from São Paulo to Rio. This second move back to Rio ended up being for personal reasons because my wife was pregnant, and after a lot of debate, we decided we wanted to raise our daughter Olivia closer to our family in Rio, where we have also a lot of friends. Even though we loved São Paulo, her especially, but it was all her decision in the end. And I think that ended up generating a few lessons on the professional side, which were quite interesting because at our firm, 80% of all the people are in Rio. And even though we work very well remotely, we only have one day in the office. And our evaluation was that things were really, really good. At the same time, I started going more to the Rio office, and that ended up generating a lot of interesting connections and conversations with sometimes people that are not always in the same meeting rooms. And actually, Ioná is a good example about that because one day at the firm, she just went up to me and said, "Oh, I wanted to participate in a seminar, and I think the firm should get involved and sponsor." And we did that, and it was an event in São Paulo where Ioná also participated. So that little interaction was something that wasn't really planned, wasn't scripted, but at the same time, my thought process was that even though I was always trying to make myself available, sometimes it requires that sort of chance or casual situation for people to interact. So we even had a debate if people should have more days working in the office because of that, which is maybe a natural thought process. But we also canceled that idea because ultimately, for the teams, it didn't make sense for them to go more times into the office. But it made sense for some of the leaders or people in leadership positions to be there, to be engaging and connecting with more people. So ultimately, that's something that we suggest leaders to do, to go in different days so they can connect with different teams because the teams only go in their specific day. And I personally try to do that as well. So I try to change a bit my week. So every other week I go different days so I can connect with people and allow that chance to happen without putting a strain into the teams that don't really require coming more into the office. So there was a really long debate But our idea at the firm always is to hear people. So I think that's a little bit of a change that I felt of the importance of being close. But your role as a leader to sort of do that extra effort and not put that strain on the team that it's not their, let's say, responsibility to do that part.
Absolutely. And that casual interaction led to Iona's attendance at this seminar. Do you have any
Yes.
thoughts on that, Iona?
In my case, one of the biggest surprises in my career was becoming a lawyer after many years working as a trademark paralegal. Many years. So it surprised me. At the beginning of my career, I never imagined that one day I would become an attorney, inspiring teams, advise clients, and eventually becoming a patron. Looking back, I realized that journey taught me that careers don't not always follow a straight line. Sometimes opportunities appear when we were willing to keep learning, take on new challenges, and step outside our comfort zone. For example, stay here today, for me, is a challenge. And I think we should, this kind of experience shape my professional development.
Wonderful. All right, I'm going to take us back about 3 years ago when we were at Denver's International Trademark Association Trademark Administrators and Practitioners meeting, TMAP. I was co-chairing that meeting, and I had a conversation with Robert there about mentorship and leadership and all that good stuff, and his what I called back then program of them. Their firm had sent a paralegal to the States to do some work at a US law firm. And I had at that time called it an exchange program, if you will. Think college and how you students do an exchange program and what have you. And I was so excited to hear about such a program and interested in all the particulars there. We got to talking about it, and it was just so exciting to hear something of that caliber that I had never heard of before. So I just want to dive into that a little bit and start from the beginning. Robert, can you take us through this organizational transformation that was so focused on professionalizing management practices and the structure of this, what I called a program, but really it is a philosophy. And we want to hear about Daniel IP's journey, about how the firm implemented and structured its performance. Well, with this whole philosophy, it ended up being performance evaluations and leadership development initiatives and dedicated people business partner support for their leadership and teams, and how your model is particularly not viewed as a linear process. We'd love to hear about all of this.
Perfect. And I remember that conversation very well. And it was it's nice to be able to talk about this. And it's true, it's not exactly a program. It is a bit of the culture of the firm, but that didn't mean we couldn't invest in making this in a more of a structured way. So I think this is also part of our philosophy, especially by our managing partner and CEO, Elisa Daniel. So she always had this view of professionalization and management of the firm. So she has the idea, but she said we have to focus on the execution because I have the vision, but I need help in terms of how to do this. And this is a little bit of how this started. This was 2020, basically. We focused on bringing in a team that would support the firm in an additional stage of organizational transformation. So it was a big project. It involved the whole firm, and it was inspired in agile methodologies. So it's something that's, it exists, very well known, applied to a lot of companies, but we adapted it to our culture because at the same time, while we were learning about this, we didn't agree with everything as well. So it was a focus on this continuous improvement and applying it in our style. And what we did at the time was establish a more clear vision for everyone at the firm. So this came from Elisa, what she's what she looks in terms of the future for us, for the market, and how we can prepare for that. And then a lot of it involves people, because as a service company, we're basically made out of people. And what we decided to do first was open up to the whole firm a voting process, so they could elect what would be the first things we should tackle, what would be the priorities. So at the time, everyone voted for the feedback and evaluation process, which I'm sure it is always something complex in many organizations. Ours wasn't perfect at the time. I'm sure it's still not perfect, but that was voted, and that's where we started working. And as a project, we involve people from all over areas of the firm, different backgrounds. Purposely, we tried to avoid it only senior partners or everyone in leadership roles, because in the end, um, there are, let's say, two members being affected by a feedback process. It's the team being evaluated and the leaders. So we sort of shifted that a little bit and created a stronger importance of how the leaders are evaluated by their teams as well. So it was a big cross functional team. And we changed our process. We changed the main pillars, which there is a part of performance, but there's a very strong part which has the same weight, which is cultural alignment. So basically, is how people uh, align their way of working with the firm's values. And we have collaboration, innovation, excellence, diversity, and balance, which is, I think, one value which is very important, has always been a strong belief here at the firm, which basically is it's not just about the result. How you reach that is important. It matters. So if you did everything to do, you sort of went over people to do something, even if it's a great result, that will show up in your performance review as an issue, something to improve. And we also created more moments throughout the year where people can talk about how their performance is, and we don't only do the feedback, we do a feed forward evaluation. So that gives people time to have this conversation, understand what they can do to improve, how they can do better, and have this open conversation with their leaders. And this whole process is always closely monitored by our team of people and culture, as we call it at the firm, which has business partners that work directly with the team members and also the leaders, because we want the leaders to improve as leaders as much as we want the team members to improve in their roles.
Oh, that is so wonderful to hear. What does the feed forward look like? Can you give me an example?
Basically, the feed forward provides sort of let's say, a view in the middle of the year. Usually we do this around June, July. So actually we're starting the process of the feed forwards now. So it basically reviews the first semester on performance and also on, let's say, the behaviors and how that connects with our values. And also based on what was established as a goal or objectives for the person or the team in this first semester. And sort of we try to give the person the tools to improve on what they're doing, but also on in terms of positive feedback, reinforce what they're doing right, because sometimes this is not clear at all. So it's something that it's easily forgotten, right? To really outline what you're doing correctly so you can do more of that. So you can also be an example of that for other team members who might have not connected to that yet. So that's more or less how it looks like. And it has no influence to the final evaluation process. So it's supposed to be a bit of a more relaxed way of even giving the more, let's say, the part where people have to improve, because we know that the feedback in general can be quite a stressful process, and we want people to improve. So it was also a lot about giving this good environment so that we can start having these conversations and focus on improving for the second semester if that's the case.
Yeah, yeah. And that's investment in your people. You know,
100%, yeah.
and yeah, and that's the culture that you want to see. So rather than doing say an annual review, you have a little check-in, if you will, with them
Mhm,
through through mid-process, say through in the middle of the year or what have you, to help them
mhm,
realize where they might be and where they could improve, if you want to call it that, or
mhm.
realize where they are doing fantastic and hey, what can we do to keep this going? Um,
Exactly. And obviously, we also have different types of meetings. So there are one-on-one meetings. They can be weekly, every 15 days, monthly, depending on the person and what exactly, let's say, happening right now. What's the context around the role? So we always are encouraging people to managers, leaders, and the team to connect routinely. But
mhm,
the feed forward is a semi-formal process
mhm,
where we do that for all the firm, and then we also report this, let's say, to our different committees that we have and to the board, so they have a general sense
mhm,
in terms of numbers of how the teams are currently positioning themselves in a 9-box structure. So this is part of a methodology that we applied. It exists, and anyone interested can research it. Basically, that's the name, 9 box, as a
mm,
little crate. And we have the two lines. One is the performance results based on things that were established and agreed with that person or the role or the team, and also the behavior side with the values. So basically, you can be at the center of this box, or you can go into different quadrants based on
mhm,
that level. So you can be, let's say, I don't remember if these are the correct words in English now. Maybe they aren't, but just to give a general sense,
uh-huh,
uh, within expectations, above or below, and that goes
mhm,
for both arrows, let's say. So basically, people can be established in different formats, and most of them are pretty okay. It's more about showing to the person what they can do to improve in one or the other quadrant, for
mhm.
example. So this is what everyone sees, and what we report also internally to upper management, if you want to call it that.
Sure, sure. Yeah. And that's good leadership, because leadership is taking responsibility for helping their people improve and wanting to
Hmm.
see their people succeed. It's like keeping their performances healthy rather than slapping their hands and saying, well, you did a horrible performance. Here's your horrible performance review. Let's put you on a what's called a PIP in some
Yeah, yeah.
firms. So rather than
And
taking in a negative way, it is
mhm,
actually brought in a very positive way to keep your performance healthy. That's great.
exactly. Yeah, one of
Hmm.
the big things we wanted to remove here from the firm was that sort of sensation that some members would have in a performance review. Oh, but I didn't know this. Why wasn't
Hmm.
I alert about this? So that in that moment, it's already the formalities have sort of gone underway. So it
That's
created
right.
this really negative environment, and people thought that, well, maybe if this was properly communicated by my leadership, I would have
That's
had
right.
time to resolve this. So this is our way of anticipating things and ensuring that everything is discussed. And obviously, there are performance reviews which are not necessarily positive. But
Sure.
our experience nowadays is that when this happens, when that conversation happens with the person, they say, no, yeah, I agree. I missed on this point, on that point. I have to do better here. So, um, it is a performance review. So
Sure.
there's no way
Sure.
of avoiding sometimes a negative, let's say, conversation, but it's about improvement and everyone being on the same page. So this is the biggest benefit that we've seen over the years since we implemented this format, which I'm
Hmm.
sure there are still a lot of issues to resolve and to improve. But I think that was the big shift that we had back then when we initiated this process.
And I'm sure that when communicated, a lot of solutions come about, and a lot of, if you want to call them issues, are resolved rather than, tension, if you will. That feed forward thing, I'm sure, resolves a lot. That's great. Ioná, can you describe your experience through this process and this new structured
Okay.
implementation?
In addition to what Robert said, I would like to emphasize that Daniel has a strong culture of collaboration. For example, before joining Daniel, I worked in another office. I was there in about 18 years, okay? So when I arrived at Daniel, everything is new because Daniel is very, how can I say, they use a lot of innovation, technology. So for me, it was a challenge. But the team embraced me and they helped me to deal with the new tasks, new systems. So I think collaboration is a great point at this problem because, for example, there we don't have a competition. We don't have competition. We have an idea of team build. We together, we have a goal, and we help each other. And I think it's very important. It was very important to me because collaboration, I think it's a pillar, it's a base, it's a great point. And at Daniel, and the opportunities. If you work hard, if you are, how can I say, you'd like to learn, because we are encouraged to not only learning, share our knowledge, but also to share with other colleagues what we have, and a collaboration is a strong point on our culture.
So very inclusive with each other, collaborative and inclusive.
Mhm. Yeah.
Wonderful.
If I can add a little bit on what Ioná said, this was also part of a process here at the firm. This was a bit before this more recent project, but what we did a couple of years ago, we removed, because we had these as well as many firms do, individual billing targets. So that was a big cultural shift for us. And what we created was just team targets. So Ioná's team, they all have the same target. Obviously, the leaders and the team, they can check more or less what each of them is contributing to the result. But at the same time, we have clients with different profiles, different needs, and we don't want everyone fighting to work with this or that client, because in the end, we want to service the clients in the best way possible. And this also connects with clients that have certain matters which are non-billable. They exist, or certain tasks that are not billable, but at the same time, these are very important for what the client needs. Maybe it's just a simple status update, but someone has to stop and do that. And I remember before this was implemented, we had a huge stockpile of status reports that were always left behind because that was not billable. So when we shift to this, obviously we had loads of different conversations, but now it just seems it makes perfect sense. It works very well, and this helps with the collaborative nature of the team. So we see this in our internal chats. I see this all the time because although I'm no longer within the trademark department in the day-to-day, they have not expelled me from that chat, which I'm very thankful for. If anyone from the team is listening, thank you. Please remember that. But I say, oh, today I have this and that. I can't take over this matter. Can someone help with that for me? And it's not about building that to their name, not at all. And ultimately, that allowed us to shift how we staff matters as well. So we have our own proprietary docketing system, and that's what helps us staff matters based on how full or not someone's docket agenda might be, as we call that. And obviously we have teams that work with certain clients, we have backups and all that, but all of this formatting makes that transition of work way easier. So people can ask for help and other members can help, and it doesn't become an issue.
So team billing, it sounds like everything is viewed as the whole picture, the whole firm, not individual performance. How is your plate looking? How is your docket? Are you handling your docket rather than individually? It's a whole view of the whole team, the whole firm, that's great. I love that. Okay, how would you say that this philosophy has had a particularly positive impact on TMAs and other trademark professionals? And have many professionals evolved into highly operational positions? And if so, what do those roles look like?
Well, I think a few of the structures that sort of were built throughout this process was the openness for any member of the firm to pitch ideas, suggestions, and because we have a lot of working groups and projects for things that we believe will affect a lot of the work that we have as a firm or business goals and so on. So all of that derives from the vision that I mentioned from Alicia. And then we created strategic objectives. And out of those objectives, we have different types of metrics that we use to understand if we're moving the needle in the right direction. So when we create these groups, they are open for all members of the firm to join. We usually have these meetings virtually. So any person can participate in many different objectives, and they're not all about, let's say, business development or clients. It might be something structural at the firm. It might be something involving diversity and inclusion. It might be something involving improving the workspace and how the teams connect. So for many years, we had objectives that involved breaking silos. So this was something that took years to do, let's say, more firm-wide. So first we did remove these silos within the team so they could collaborate together, but at the same time, different teams might be focused on their own objectives. And we also wanted to make sure that for certain firm-wide objectives, they would be working closely together and collaboratively. So in these meetings, different ideas and actions are discussed openly, and people can put that action in as we call it a hypothesis. So basically, we're gonna test it out, see if it works or not. Some things are a bit more simple and easy to understand. Some things we need metrics afterwards to evaluate if it did make sense, if it worked, and if it did, what can we do to expand this? So out of this, for example, there are a lot of ideas in terms of connecting with different, let's say, stakeholders that are part of our world. And sometimes these are also firms abroad that have different experiences. And I remember that many years ago, so this I think was the connection of our first conversation. One of our, at the time, coordinators of the trademark paralegal team, Cecilia Delgado, she was concerned that Brazil was soon to adhere to the Madrid Protocol. So this was around 2018, and the Madrid Protocol in Brazil was implemented in 2019. And we had obviously researched about the subject, but we were worried about how to make this operationally successful and efficient. So she pitched the idea to visit firms in the US who we already had a relationship with, who would be open to showing us how they practiced that. And this was pre-pandemic, so we were not as used to everything online. So the physical portion of this was very important. So she pitched the idea. The idea was really well received. It made total sense. And then we said, so you should go, Cecilia, to the firm, because her idea initially was not pitching for herself to go. She thought maybe the head of the trademark team should go, but the head of the trademark team at the time, Isabella Cardoso, said, but you're the one who's going to implement everything. So you're the one that has to go. And there she went. She spent, I think, a week or almost 10 days at the firm, learned everything that she could. And I think it's worth shouting out to them as well, Merchant and Gold, because they were open to receiving us and showing how their practice worked. And Cecilia came back with loads of ideas and how that would connect well with our systems. And she started implementing that. And she was the main person demanding our IT team, our developers, for any changes that we had to do here and there. So I think it's an interesting example. It's not necessarily a program that we have every year, let's say TMAs visiting firms, but it's the openness for anyone to pitch ideas and to go for them as well. And I think this is again a segue for Ioná, because Ioná has always been interested in participating in events. She follows a lot what's happening. She researches, she shares data with the team the whole time. She's, I think, the main person sharing topics and insights with the team. But she hadn't participated in a seminar, and she pitched the idea of the firm getting more involved with the IP Association of São Paulo, which the firm had not been participating in the last couple of years. But she said, I think it's a great idea. I've met some of the people that are organizing this, and I think that the firm should be involved. And again, she was pitching for the firm to be involved. And then we said, well, you're not, so you have to go there. Get on the plane, participate, see what you think would be interesting to do. And in the end, she created an opportunity for another partner of the firm to speak in a panel about litigation. And it was actually something really good and positive for the firm, and a reconnection with an association, uh, which we sort of strained a bit for different reasons. So I think she provided this really good insight. And I think from that, she sort of connected in participating in a few more events, such as this one. I'm very happy that she is here participating as well. And I don't know if you and I want to talk a little bit about this. Um, and I'm happy. I hope it's okay to say that I did give her a little bit of a push, because again, her first reaction was, oh, but maybe someone else should participate. And again, we said, but why? You're the one with this idea, which is great. You're the one that's bringing this thing to our attention, and you're right, it's relevant. So I think it's only right that you participate as well. So I don't know if you want to say anything about that as well, Yana.
Yes, it was very special because, for example, here at Daniel, we are encouraged to share ideas, and this brings to us a sense of ownership. And I think it's very important. We take part of all foundations, all the process, and I think it's very special to all of us, because this sense of ownership, because wow, I am special. I can give an idea. Robert, for example, he is open to receive our ideas, and I think that he does that. I think it's very special. He sent emails sharing to us all the projects, news, how can I say, celebrations. It's
Mhm.
very important to us, very special. In many, another aspect that I would like to know, it's about our individuality. Because in many organizations, people feel pressure to fit in a specific mode.
Mhm.
And I think it's not good. For example, at this culture, the culture of Daniel, we are free to know, to be who we are. Our individual, our respected as human being, as, how can I say, and I think it's very, very special. And we keep moving because we are special without considering our age, gender, background. If you would like what you do, if you work hard and you have a passion, you have a lot of opportunities.
Exactly. And with this philosophy that Daniel IP has implemented and executed into this structure has led you to become successfully a partner within the firm in your own way. You got through your own, you structured your own path, basically. That's
Yeah,
wonderful. And
exactly.
congratulations. Yeah, congratulations again. That's great. This is such a successful I won't say program, a successful structure from that was implemented and executed from a great philosophy and an investment in people. That's
Yeah,
wonderful.
all time.
Hmm.
And I have to say, it's not without our own faults, of course, and
Of course.
it's always a continuous thing of improvement. I always say that we do get things wrong, but it
Sure.
was with the goal of doing things right.
That's
But
right.
it's not a perfect process. And even, for example, when Ioná joined the firm, she was very, it was interesting as well because she was very proactive in writing to the firm as well. I think, thank you for doing that, Ioná. We're very happy that you're part of the team. But it's funny that at the time, even, for example, even though Ioná was already an attorney, um, she was still hired as a paralegal because that
Yeah,
was her main role previously. And that was, let's say, the function that we had also at the firm at the time. But over time as well, we started to review and rediscuss these things. But why is Yona only doing the work of a paralegal if she has capabilities to do more? And this did not only apply to Yona, but apply to other people as well, especially in the trademark team. And over time, and thankfully, I would say maybe it, well, my perspective, maybe Yona doesn't agree, and that's okay. Uh, Without taking too long, we should have started to realize this, and we started to also review functions, tasks, roles, responsibilities within the team, and sort of removing these borders. We never had, at least at least in almost 15 years that I've been with the firm, the format that this is someone's paralegal that supports this someone. We always had the paralegal team that had their objectives, their tasks, their roles, which were separate from different roles within the trademark team. For example, the trademark attorneys doing disputes or litigation. But with time, what we did was we still connected these teams. So removed the silo which existed within the trademark department so that we could sort of have a lot of people doing similar functions within their level of experience and always pushing them to do a little bit more. And I think this was part of the realization that, well, she's also a lawyer. So
yeah.
she can get involved in different projects. And that started. And then there was the move to becoming a partner as well, given her, you said, started working with 18 years in IP. So years, decades of experience that weren't being completely um, considered by the firm.
A total of 30 years, three decades. And I have three graduations. In some IP firms, you should, to be a partner, it's like a dynasty. How to say, Robert, for example?
Dynasty?
Dynasty. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. And it also sounds like, as in your leadership role, you notice different aspects of the teams. You're able to identify your team's different strong skills. That's a big deal to notice what some people might be very good at. Those who reach out more, or those who have those special skills, or you can tell that they have a path that is their own, and that they will, they might have like we said, it's not a straight path to whatever your career growth may be. And that's good leadership as well, being able to identify that everybody's got their own way and they might find their skills differently than everyone else, if that makes sense. So,
Yeah, no, it does. Um, and I think it's about hearing as well. So I think in terms of a program or a structure, a lot of what we have is different ways to try and correct when we're not paying attention, because it happens a lot of it might be everyone is busy. We have loads of
sure.
things in our minds and different projects, so it's not unusual for sometimes you just you stop paying attention, involuntarily. And I think these formats that we have end up allowing for these conversations. So
That's right.
when we're talking about, well, what's next for the trademark team? What should
Mm-hmm.
we be focusing on? Maybe we should do this and that. And then we have the openness for someone to raise their hand and say, but why aren't we doing this here as well? And then we say, oh, that's that's a good point. We should
That's
have thought
right.
about this. We should be focusing on this. And what we love to do as a firm, and this goes a long way for Alicia as well. She always says this when someone new joins us. Tell me everything we're doing wrong. Everything we're doing wrong, our mistakes. I want to hear everything. I'm sure we're completely incompetent in what we're doing. So she is basically that those are the terms that she
Mm-hmm.
uses. But it's really about hearing, and we're always interested
Sure.
in knowing what other firms might be doing as well. So we always apply things in our own way. I think that's something that we have a very strong personality, but it's still interesting to get bits and pieces here and there and sort of always evolve, because I think that's one of our main objectives, to evolve, and it means to embrace change.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Ioná, let's dive into your growth path. What has that looked like over the years, and how have you contributed to the growth and success of your teams?
I think it's very important to understand one thing, to never stop learning. Never stop learning, because, for example, when sometimes a person thinks that I know everything, it's not necessary to study a little more, but I think it's very important to never stop learning. For example, I have 3 graduations. The first one was literature, because when I joined this area, I realized that it's extremely necessary to read a message, to interpret it, because intellectual property is a complex area. And sometimes necessary to, how can I say, to explain to the clients all the subjects. So the first degree is literature. After then, I decided to study law, because I think it's necessary to give to the clients how can I say, a background about law, about intellectual property, about the Brazilian IP, intellectual property. So I studied law, and it was a challenge, but I worked hard to become a member of the Brazilian Bar Association, because here in Brazil, it's very, very difficult. I don't know how is in another countries, because here in Brazil, it's very, very difficult. So I work hard to how can I say, to achieve the inscription. And after that, I studied marketing. I graduated in marketing, because it's there is a link between marketing and intellectual property, because, for example, branding and brand positioning are very closely connected to trademarks, and study market helped me a lot. So I always, how can I say, encouraged the team to study, to make, how can I say, to make inscriptions in courses, because here in Brazil, we have a lot of opportunities. And nowadays, I involved in mentorship. I train professionals how can I say it, how to deal with clients, for example, about our trademark law, because here in Brazil, we are in a kind of transition. And every day we have news about changes. So I think it's very important to keep moving, studying. It's very important. Here at Daniel, we are encouraged to study, to, how can I say, to improve. And I think it's very important.
Absolutely. Education is power.
Education is power.
That's right. So you have a compelling philosophy of leadership and professional development, along with a strong support of TMAs. What keeps you accountable to it, and how has that accountability influenced your success? Robert, can you share your thoughts on that, please?
Sure. Well, I think what really holds us accountable, if we think about it, is we always want to retain the best talent, and we have to have the best environment for talent to grow, to develop, to exchange ideas. And perhaps in the past, we've had a hard time in some situations because maybe the role was too boxed up, and that might not have been the best fit for the person. And maybe we didn't want to lose the person, but at the same time, things didn't fit as well. So I think that has shared with us a lot of experiences over the past years. And at the same time, we might have lost talent in the past as well because of poor leadership of who was the manager at the time. So maybe the manager wasn't a good fit too, or they weren't receiving the proper feedback to improve and develop their team. So I think in the end, we are made of people, and we want the best people with us and the best people that share the same vision, that share the same values, so that we can work better for the same goals and grow collectively. So I think ultimately it's not exactly a metric, a number that we can follow, but that's the main perception that I have thinking about everything I've seen at the firm in the last 15 years, which is only half of Ioná's experience, but it still feels like a long time for me here at the firm as well. So I think over the years, that's what we've seen. We're definitely very different from 15 years ago, different from 10, different from 5. I'm sure the next 5 years will be different as well. But I think now we have a very strong consolidated view through the process that we had of organizational transformation. So a few things that might have been blurred or not so clear, we sort of brought that up to the surface, to our attention, and we're always trying to improve that. So it doesn't mean we don't have maybe managers and leaders that have to improve, or different functions and responsibilities of people that we're yet to figure out the best place for them and for the firm and for the team. But these are the type of conversations that we're open to having, based on the idea of continuous, evolution of how clients, the market, and the context that we are inserted in. So we're in the middle of seeing AI come into play. So how does that look like in a few years? Obviously, everything is changing right in front of our eyes, and we're trying to understand the best way forward with everything. So I think that's what's really holding us accountable, is this shared view that we want the best with us, and with the same view of the world and how to grow and evolve as a business.
That's great. And I think also you are listening. That's huge. You're listening to the firm as a whole. You're listening to your employees. You're listening to your teams, and you're moving forward. You're not staying stagnant. You're listening and you're moving forward. And your structures change, it sounds like. The philosophy is there, but the structures change. And like you said, everything's evolving. And therefore, you're bringing your people with you and everybody's moving and you're listening to their ideas. That's great. Today's conversation showed that professional development doesn't have to be something that happens by chance, whether it's mentorship, new experiences, exposure to different perspectives, or simply creating opportunities for people to grow. Organizations can play a meaningful role in helping trademark professionals build new skills and expand what's possible in their careers. We also heard that those investments don't just benefit the individuals involved. They can strengthen culture, create new opportunities, improve retention, and help TMAs and other trademark professionals become more strategic partners within their organizations and build an organizational culture where talented people are continuously supported, challenged, recognized, and given opportunities to grow beyond traditional role expectations. Robert and Ioná, before we wrap up, are there any final thoughts that you'd like to leave our listeners with today?
I would say never stop learning. Never stop learning. Keep studying, keep preparing yourself, and always do your best wherever you are. Sometimes we are so focused on the next opportunity that we forget to prepare for it. In my experience, opportunities often come when we are ready to embrace. We don't have to be afraid about new challenges, new opportunities, and be curious. Stay open to change. Because, for example, I was at the time of typewriter, fax machine, so everything changed dramatically. So we need to be open to challenges, to change, stay open to trust the process and never give up, never give up, never give up. Because I know a lot of colleagues that change of profession because intellectual property is a area that we have a lot of pressure. We have deadlines. For example, in Brazil, we have first to file system and everything is urgent. Everything is urgent. So growth takes time, but if the effort is always worthwhile.
Well, and I just wanted to say, thank you for the chance to be here, to be listening also to Ioná, because I think there's some great stories there, and she's really a great example um, of growth, of taking sort of taking the responsibility for your career as well. So I don't think anything based on what we've talked before, anything that happened by chance. So you were not only there to seize the opportunity, I think you sort of made that happen as well. And I hope that we do have this environment that allows you to do this, since you reached out to join the firm some years ago, and everything else that's happened so far and what's to come. So I think the message, if I can share anything, I don't know. Not everything is so organized and nicely done or neatly done. Sometimes you need a little push and you need someone to help as well. So I'm glad that you reached out to someone at the firm. You took you took action. There was someone listening, and I guess we're all just people trying to find our ways, our paths, and hopefully the environment helps that. And every environment evolves as well. Some might take longer than others. I'm sure there are people that think we should have done a few things faster as well. So that's on us to have in our minds and always think of how can the next few days, years, and so on be better. But yeah, just thank you for the chance to be here and sharing these thoughts. I think it's a great project that you have to give voice to these stories and hopefully a little bit circles around, as I'm sure we've also received a few ideas and thoughts on this project of the TMA Talk Show as well.
Thank you so much for this opportunity.
At the TMA Talk Show, we like to highlight a trademark administrator or someone in the TMA community who has inspired us all. This episode's inspiration is Amy Weber. Amy launched her career as a trademark paralegal in January of 1999 at Townsend & Townsend and Crew, now Kilpatrick Townsend. After more than 25 years in a law firm environment, she ventured out on her own, founding Weber Mark, a trademark paralegal outsourcing business. Weber Mark was subsequently acquired by Alt Legal, where Amy spent nearly 2 years building the company's Assist division, a service offering outsourced trademark paralegal and docketing support. Most recently, Amy announced plans to begin a phased retirement, transitioning from her role as VP of Assist to return to her roots as a trademark paralegal in a part-time capacity. Congratulations, Amy. Join us for episode 19. We're doing something extra special for the next one. The TMA Talk Show is going live as part of the American Bar Association, the Intellectual Property Law section, Solutions for Intellectual Property Paralegals and Administrators series. We will be joined by Megan Carpenter, Dean and Professor of Law at the University of New Hampshire Franklin Pierce School of Law. We're going to touch on the future of the legal profession and how the changing roles within legal work. And we will also go into more personal and motivational side of building an authentic professional path in the world of intellectual property. Be there or be square. The TMA Talk Show is a production of Alt Legal and the Trademark Administrators Exchange. And before we go, a big thanks to our amazing team. Content producer, Tracy Cook. Chief Editor, Jernez Owens. Editorial Producer, Bree Van Thiel. Social Media Manager, Sam Hands. And original music by Sunny St. John. This was made by TMAs for TMAs. Until next time, stay inspired, stay curious, and always keep transforming your tomorrow.